This is Gemara Metziah Daf Chof Aleph Baruch Hashem. Another exciting day in the world of Daf as we wrap up the first perek of Metziah and forge into the second, quite a famous perek Elu Metziahis B'siyata Dishmaya. But before that, we first have to finish up, and we're holding on the bottom of Chof Amid Beis. We're approximately 10 lines to the bottom. The first line is a lay. And we're about to start Tanan, the second to last word in the line. And we're in the middle of discussing Simpoinais, receipts, and the statement that we ended with, which is a receipt that emerges, even if it's in his handwriting, is only like misachek, it's a joke and it's possible. Because why does the malva have the receipt? Of course, the loivat is the one that should have the receipt, and therefore, says the Gemara, if the malva has such a receipt and he doesn't know from what it is, therefore it's einoyela kimisachik ba'alma. As simply, of course, when one pays back his loan, he should receive the receipt. So if the loiva indeed paid back, he should have received the receipt. The fact that he did not, unfortunately, means either he didn't pay back or something else went wrong. Therefore, the malva can still collect. We continue with a kasha. Tinan says the Gemara, ask the Gemara from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if there are these simpoines, if there is some sort of receipt, then we should do that which it says in the receipt. So you just told me not. Answers the Gemara, our Mishnah is talking about in which this receipt was found by the malva or his family amongst other shtarais kuruin, other ripped up documents, and therefore we could assume from the place that it was found, it was part of these documents which are paid up, and that's the reason to assume that it's no longer collectible. And that's the reason why the Mishnah said you do what the receipt says due to the location that it was found. Says more another kasha tashema nimsalechar bein shtarasav. If it was found amongst the echa bein shtarasav, a document amongst the shtaras that said shtaras shel Yosef and Shimon parua, the document of Yosef and Shimon is paid, and we know there are two people who owe money to this malva, shtaras shneihen paruim. Therefore, we assume they're both paid, and the malva can neither collect from either Yosef and Shimon, because where is this shtar saying that they were paid up? But what do we see? We see, not like Rav Yirmiyah Ba'aba, we see that if a shtar is found, a receipt is found, it is indeed assumed to be valid. Explains the Gemara, 4 lines to the bottom, K'tamar Rav Safra, Shenimsa bein shtaraisav kiruin. A very similar case. Meaning again, the location is that which dictates that it was probably paid up. Continues the Gemara Tashman of the Kasha. Ask the Gemara. It says in the Mishnah, Shur Slopakadanu Abba. Take our shvur that our father did not tell us anything about any of these halvais that he was paid. And Abba didn't say anything to us. We didn't find anything amongst the documents of our father about the shtar being paid. And that's a shvur that the children are going to take in order to collect. What's the clear implication? Now, let's say there was such a shtar. Clearly, it would seem if there was such a shtar, then they would not be able to collect. So it would seem that if there was a simple, if there was a receipt, we do that which a receipt says. I'm going to have Korean. Tashaman, the last line of Chavim Beis, simple and Sheish Lav Eidim. If there is a receipt with Eidim Yiskayim v'Chaysamav, we certify the Eidim with the Chaysamav, and then we do what it says. Now, like Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah. Ema Yiskayim Michaysamav. Answers the Gemara, no, you know what it means? It should be certified from its signatures. How do we do this? As we turn over to Chav Aleph, Amid Aleph, Teshaylinu Lahu Lesadi. That what this brisa means is that we should ask the witnesses Not just certifying that, showing that these are kosher signatures, and thereby we would allow them to collect with it. No, says the Gemara. You know what the Raisa means? The Raisa means we ask them, was it paid or not? Therefore, there's no kasha at all. Tashema, one final kasha. Tabu chaval v'manal, the second line. Simon sheish lav eidim. Simban with eidim kosher. Again, we do with the simban what the receipt says. Answers the Gemara. My eidim kiyum. Hachanam mistavrim diktani seva sheinu levedim pasal. My nail levedim. Elim to like a lui edim cloud. There's no edim at all in this receipt. Shechlameimer, the pasal. Of course, it's pasal. El olav edekiyum. Must be. There's no edim of kiyum that the signatures of the judges are not there. And we conclude quoting the aforementioned Braisa Gufa. Simpoin sheyesh lav edim yiskayim b'chaysama v'einu lav edim. If a third party has this simple, or it's in Bezdin below the signatures, kosher. Says the Gemara, what's this case that a third party is holding it? What's going on over here is that the Malva believed the Shlish when he gave him the receipt. What does that mean? That means that if it was not the fact that the shtar was paid up, they would never have written underneath the shtar, the debt document itself, they would never have written this receipt. And the fact they did, that itself shows us that it must have been paid up. Mirza Hashem, it's time for Chazara. With every parak, we have to figure out a new system to do more Chazara. B'siyata d'shmaya. Now we begin the famous Mishnah, the second parak of Bam Metziah. Elu Metziah shaloi ve'elu chayav lachris. Says the Mishnah, the following Metziah, if someone finds an item, the following items one could keep, and the following items one has to announce. And the Mishnah now explains. What are the items that one is allowed to keep? Matzah peiros mefuzarin, scattered monies, ma'os mefuzarai, scattered. Peiros mefuzarai, scattered. Peiros ma'os mefuzarai, scattered money. Krichais rishos harabim, bundles in rishos harabim, small sheaves in rishos harabim. Igulei devela, cakes of figs. Kikara shel nachtam, a bread of a baker, machroizais shel dagim, strings of fish, chatichos shel basar, pieces of meat, kizei semer, pieces of wool, alekucham in Medina that are bought from Medina unprocessed, vanitze pishtam, bundles of flax, l'shena shel argaman, tongues of purple wool. In all of these cases, hare elu shalai devir ameir, these are included in Elu Metziah Shalai. All of the aforementioned cases one keeps if those items are found. That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Kol sheish b'shinoi chayav lachri. It says Rabbi Yehuda, no. Anything that has some level of unusuality to it, it's something peculiar about the item, you have to announce it. If you found a cake and inside of it was a piece of pottery, kikar, a piece of bread, and there was money, odd. Says Rav Yehuda, you have to announce it. Shemin Elazar Aimer Kol Kli Puria in Chayiv La'achris. Any Kli Puria, which we're going to see in the Gemara, what that means, a brand new item. Then says Shemin Elazar, you don't need to announce it for the simple reason it's brand new. The owner doesn't have familiarity to it, so announcing it will not do anything. We begin the Gemara. Says the Gemara, going through the first part of the Mishnah, which are the cases of Elu Metziah Shalai. Says the Gemara, Matzah peiros mefuzarin v'kama. How many peiros is that? Or it's like kav arba amos. Hechidami. What's the case of finding a kav and dalet amos? Iderch nefila. If from the way they're seen, it's clear they fell. Afilu tuvanami. That even if it's more than a kal and amos, should belong to the one who finds it, because there's no way to identify this item, as it clearly just fell off of whatever he was holding it. And therefore, what's the point? Therefore, even more than that should be Elu Metziah Shalai. V'derech inuach. And if it's clear that these peiros were placed there, then afilu batzim yachinam ilai. Even less than this amount, you should not be allowed to keep. So ask the Gemara, why are you, Rav Yitzchak, teaching me it has to do with the quantity of peiros found? It should have to do with the mannerism that they are seen on the ground. So Amar Avoka Bar Chama b'mashchanta dveidari askinan. We're done with a particular case, done with a case not of an item that was simply lost, but it's an area they cleared out the threshing floor, and then it's clear that an item was left there. So the question is, at what point can you keep that? So kav arba amois tinafish tirachayu. It's a lot of tircha to get back one kav of tin arba amois. And therefore the person is not going to come back to get it. So the Gemara is answering. This is not a regular Metziah that you find in the middle of the street. This is called, you're at an area in which they cleared out the area and something was clearly left behind. So we're trying to figure out the quantity that the owner is going to come back to get it. So says the Gemara, Kavar Abamas is too much bother, he's not going to come back to get it. And that's why you're allowed to keep it, because he was clearly mafkir. Less than that, Tarach Vater Vasi, Bishakalu, and he'll take it, and therefore lo mafkirlu, and that's the reason why you're not allowed to keep it. Says the Gemara, Boy Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah asks on this din of Rav Yitzchak, this din of Kav Bar Ba'amis. What's the halach of Chatzi Kav B'Shtei Amis? A half a kav and 2 amas, meaning, is it a ratio? Is it an equation? No. Do we say kavar abamis time amai? What's the reason for kavar abamis mishum? Dinafish terchayu, because it's a lot of bother, and therefore chatzi kav v'shtei amas kim the lonafish terchayu. It's not so much bother. It's only half a kav lo mafku. You wouldn't be mafku, and I'll come back and get it. Or you tell more, maybe maybe it's just not chashiv, and therefore chatzi kav v'shtei amas is as well kim the chashiv mafku. He'll be mafkut. Case number 1, and the Gemara builds in the next 3, which will be 4 cases in total. So case 1 was Chatzika v'shtei amas. Case 2 is Kabayim b'shmain amas. Again, now it's the reverse. 2 kavanei amas. Mao. Do we say Kabayim amas that my Mishnah Navishachai was not a bother? Of course, King Kabayim Mishnah amas given Navishachai was not a bother. Tvei mafkilu will be mafkir it. Oy damu Mishnah chashivi, or maybe it's no chashiv. Kabayim Mishnah amas given the chashivi. It is chashiv. Loi mafkir lahu. Case number 3, last narrow line, kav shum shemim b'arba amos. What if it's a kav of sesame in Dalet Amos Mao? What's the kav arba amos time shum? Shaloi chashivi, it's not chashiv, it's v'shum shemin, given the chashivi le'mafkilu, to mishad the nafesh it's not a bother, v'kosh kein shum shemin. It's even more bother, given the shachayu, tvei mafkilu. And finally, the fourth case that Rav Yirmiyah asks on the original Yesod of Rav Yitzchak of Karvar Ba'amo, he says, the Gemara, what about Kav Tamari Bar Ba'amois? Tamarim, or larger, Kavri Maini Bar Ba'amois Mahu. So what's the Shaila? The Gemara articulates. 4th wide line, Kav Bar Ba'amois Mishun Lo Chashivi, Kav Tamri Bar Ba'amos, Kavri Maini Bar Ba'amos Nam, either not Chashiv Kiv Lo Chashivi. Therefore, mafkilu otam mishad nafesh chayil is not a bother. Whereas kaftam rabamos kavir money rabamos, it's less bother. Give nafesh chayil mafkilu. So what is the halacha? Mai says the Gemara. Teku, we gotta wait to Mirza Shem for Leo Navi for this one. Itmar, and now we turn over to Chavalev Amid Beis, and this probably is one of the most famous Gemaras in all of Shas. Yush Shaloi Midas, a Gemara that we're going to be dealing with for the next few days. And in reality, a Gemara that begins over here, but one of those figures we have to keep in mind as we go through it. And of course, maybe this is a good impetus to try to implement a Chazara system. Says the Gemara, Yush Shaloi Midas. Yush, again, is when one gives up hope of getting back an item. What about Yush Shaloi Midas? What is the story? Abaye Amar Lo Yavi Yush. Rava Amar Haviyush. So Rashi in the top Rashi says, talking about an item that the Stam Yush, when you know that you dropped it and you're going to be Mayayish, but when it's found, you as of yet don't know it was dropped. So do we say you could keep it because you're going to be Mayayish, therefore the find you could keep it? Or Lamaisa, right now, we're not Mayayish. So explains the Gemara, what is the depth of the kasha? But if there's an item that has a siman, has an identifying mark on it, then says the Gemara 3 lines down, And even if you heard that the owner was miyayish, you heard that I'm never going to get back that item. But it's really not true. Why? Because when the guy found it was be'isr. Because when the owner finds out that he dropped it, he's not going to be miyayish. He's not going to give up a whole meimar. You know why? Because he's going to say to himself, Simana is sleeping. I have a sim and I have an identifying mark in it. You have in a simana. So case number one, it's clearly not going to be Yosh if it's an item with the simon. And if we could just appreciate this for a moment, you have an item in your pocket, it has your name on it, it has your phone number on it. So you dropped it. So on this item, everyone knows it's not Yosh. Even if you hear the guy saying, I'm never going to find the item, the answer is no. The answer is deep down, he feels that once he realizes that he lost it, he's going to know that he has a simon on it. Therefore, he feels to give the simon and I'll get it back. The next case in which there is no machlekes is bizuta shel yam ub'shalita shel nahar. If something is swept away by the sea or by the surge of a river, in such a scenario, the reverse. Avagav there is simin. Rachmana Sharye, the Torah permits it kitabinan lememer lekaman. As Amir Tasham, we're going to explain further. So what's the machlekes? So those two halves, a simin or is definitely not yish. A simin v'zuta shel yam is definitely yes yish. Ki pligi b'davar she'ein b'ai simin. There's no simin, and it's yish eloi midas. Abayam lo avi yish. Why? Totally other enough minute. He doesn't know he dropped it. Rav Amar havi yish. Why? Tchiyad enough minute meyash. Obi miyayish meimar Amar simana lesli b'gavei mehashta hu de miyayish. If we consider it yish right now, even before he knows he dropped it. So that is the machlokes Abaye and Rava, an item without a simin. What do we do right now? Right now, before he knows he dropped it, Abaye said it's not yish because he doesn't know he dropped it. Rava says it is yish because Lamaisa, when he realizes that he dropped it, what's going to happen? He's going to be miyayish. So we consider it yish back to now. We continue. We're holding at, it's the parentheses about 15 lines down. The first one line is Pab Gash, which is one of the Simanim. Ta Shema, let's try to prove the Shita of Rava that it is Yush. Said the Mishnah Paris Benfuzarin, scattered Peiros. Holy other than Aflamine. We don't know that he dropped it. Yes, we see in the Mishnah that it's considered that it's not Yush. So says the Gemara, we see that it is Yush in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Hare Elu Shaloi. You're allowed to keep scattered money. He doesn't know he dropped it. Clear proof to Rava that it's considered Yush. Answers Gemara, it's no proof from there, as we've already explained. Or Mashkanta the Bizri Askina on the threshing floor, the Baveda Midasi, such an area, it's considered Midas. It's considered that he does know about it because he knowingly says he's not worth to come back for it, and that's the reason why. It's Harelu Shalai to the one who finds it. Tashim Adi Gemara tries again. Mois Mefuzar. In the next case in the Mishnah, Harelu Shalai. Amai Holy Adonaf Minei answers the Gemara Yisoid. The reason why by money that's found you're allowed to keep it. A big Yisoid about money. Hasam Nami Kidarav Yitzchak. The rule of Rav Yitzchak. The Amar. What does Rav Yitzchak teach us? A person feels around, he's always cognizant, wait, is my wallet in my pocket? Wait, did I drop my credit card? Did I drop my cash? And therefore, when it is found, we can assume that he knew about it and he was miyayish. Tashima, third potential riot to Rava, that Yush Lomedas have a Yush. Igule Tvelis at the Mishnah Kikar shall nachtem, the figs, the breads. Harila Shalai of the finder. Ask Gemara, Amai Vali other than Afamine. Answers Gemara, Sanami Agav Diakri. Because they're expensive, made the Yadibahu. But because they're not expensive, because they're heavy, made the Yadibahu. The owner for sure knows that he dropped these items. Tashema, the Gemara continues, smack in the middle of the Amid. The first one line is Yada, to try to prove Rava. Tongues of purple wool, I really could keep it. Answers Gemara again. Hasanam Nagav the Chashivi, Mashmishi Misham Shibuchler. It's like that a person always makes sure to know if he's holding the item or not. Tashima, I think Gemara tries to again a riot to Rava. Hamoiti Ma, he's about to Kinesios, about to Midrasha, he's Uchol Makim Sharam Mitsuyim says the Braisa, Hare Elu Shalai in a place for Rami, let it keep it. Why? Because the owner is Miyayish. Ask Gemara, but does he know he dropped it? Answers Gemara again. When it comes to money, we assume that he does know that he dropped it. Tashima, the Gemara continues another ayah. Lekets, the forgotten grains in a field. When is any person, even not a niyam, allowed to come and take it? When the nemushais walk through the field. V'amrina, my nemushais. Who are these nemushais? V'amr Yechlan and Sabi. These are the elderly people. Tazli atigra that walk with a cane. This means when there's one group after next that walks through the field. So we have a field, some greens left over, and the Bryces explained at what stage we can assume that you're allowed to take it. Says the Gemara B'mai, very good aniyim. Over here, miyayish ika aniyim b'doch dachrina d'loi miyayish. There are aniyim in another place that are not miyayish. Why are they not miyayish to other aniyim? Because they don't know about it. So what do we see? We see that even though it's Yoshaloi Midas, says the Mishnah, it's still going to be a Havi Yish, like Rava says, that the Mishnah clearly implies that once it's Sabi Dazli Atikra, once the old people walk through, once two groups walk through, we can assume Yish. Not everyone knows about it. So we can assume Yish even without knowledge. Yishlo Midas, Havi Yish, like Rava. Answers the Gemara, Amri Kivan Diika Aniyam Acham. Hanach meikara yush miyayish v'amri aniyim da'asim laktile. Since there are aniyim in this city, the aniyim in the other city say, what's the point? The aniyim in that city are going to take it, and therefore they're automatically miyayish in the beginning. Tashema, one last potential raya, which really is going to be a little bit easier according to Abaye now. We switch a little bit. Says the Gemara about 12 lines to the bottom. The first one is Kitziyos. Kitziyos baderech, if there are cut figs on the road, vafilu b'tzad tzadik kitziyos, even next to a field of figs. V'chein, and similarly te'ina anoitea lederech, if we have a fig tree that hangs over the road, u'matza te'inim tachtan, there are figs found underneath it, mutaris b'sham gazel, u'beturais min ha'maiser. B'zeitu b'charuvais, but if it's olives or if it's carob, then also says the Gemara. Because it's their chashiv. What happens? You always are aware of them, and therefore you know about it. Therefore, it's called midas. Tina nami. When it comes to dates figs as well, maybe yadi dinatri as well. He knows that they drop off the tree, and therefore we assume that he's miyayish. That's why you're allowed to take them. And again, we're honing in on the detail. It says that it's mutaris misham gezel, because clearly we're assuming that the owner knew about it and he left it be. Ela seifa, but the seifa l'rava kasha. Why tiktani b'zeitu charuvim aser? But why are they aser? Yiyosh shaloi midas. According to Rava, have a yiyosh. Answers the Gemara. Meravu shiny zayis, 6 lines to the bottom. Hayol v'chazuta mechiach alav. Because the appearance it testifies aval gav the nitrin zeisimidi yadi, that even though it falls to the ground, it's recognizable duchta dinish in issue. For the place of a person to person, people know that it belongs to that person, and that's the reason why it is usher to take it. Meaning, says the Gemara, really, Shlomi, that's Havi, says Rava. But here's a unique case. And that's the reason why you would not be allowed to keep it. It gets destroyed, it gets nimos, it gets disgusting. And that's the reason why someone else would be allowed to take it and there's no gezel on it. We'll pick it up from the Tashema, where we'll continue to prove the Shitais of Abaye and Rava in this incredible sugya of Yish Shaloi Midas, which we're discussing is a case, which item without a sim, and Abaye says Lavi Yosh, over says Havi Yosh, and we're trying to figure out who is correct. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata Dishmaya.